All right, let's talk about the WA2 assignment. It asks you to write a powerful critique, and yeah, that can feel a little intimidating at first, but don't you worry. In this breakdown, we're going to go step by step through how to build a really compelling argument and absolutely nailed this paper.
So you've read the article American Democracy, one person, one vote, and now you have to write a response. We've all been there, right? Staring at that blank page, just wondering, where do I even start? Well, the secret isn't just about finding flaws. It's about building your own case.
Here's our game plan. We're going to cover the main task, which is taking a position. Then we'll get into how to find your specific point of disagreement, how to craft a killer thesis, build your argument, and finally, make sure you've got all the requirements locked down. Let's jump in.
Okay, first up, and this is probably the most important thing to get right, is understanding what this assignment is really asking you to do. This isn't just a summary or some random thoughts. It wants you to take a clear, definitive stand.
This right here shows the key difference. On one hand, you have simply refuting, which is just, pointing out problems, like saying, Svendra's data from 2010 is old. Okay, that's an observation, sure, but it's not an argument. What this paper demands is that you take a position. That means you use that observation to build a bigger claim. So instead, you'd argue something like, because Svendra's whole argument leans on outdated 2010 data, her main point about modern voting patterns just doesn't hold up anymore. See the difference? You went from just pointing at a crack to actually arguing why that crack brings the whole wall down.
So here's the bottom line. When you commit to a side, you give your paper a backbone. It gives it a clear purpose and direction. And it turns what could be just a random list of complaints into a focused, persuasive argument that actually has a conversation with the original text.
Okay, so you know you need to take a position, but how in the world do you find your specific angle? Well, it all starts with reading the text like a detective.
Before you can even think about agreeing or disagreeing, you have to know exactly what you're responding to. So your first job is to boil that whole article down to its one central argument. What's the single biggest idea that the author, Arthi Savindra, is trying to sell you on? Once you've got that main claim locked down, it's time to get specific. Don't just wave your hand and say, I didn't like this part. Nope. Hunt for the exact passages that make you stop and think. Is there a moment where the logic just feels a bit shaky? Or maybe a point that you find super convincing? Pinpoint it. And then, this is the important part, ask yourself, why? Why does it make you feel that way?
Now, let's dig even deeper. Start asking some tough questions. How is she using her evidence? Is she making any assumptions about her readers? About you? Does the whole argument just feel a little dated? These are the kinds of questions that help you find the weak spots or the real strengths in her case.
Fantastic. You've found your point of disagreement. Now we get to what is, honestly, the most critical part of the whole paper, turning that idea into a sharp, powerful thesis statement. This is where your gut feeling becomes a real, focused argument. I love this analogy. Think of your thesis as the GPS for your paper. It's that one single sentence that tells your reader exactly where you're taking them and what you plan to prove along the way. A strong thesis is the foundation of a strong paper, period. And getting there is a pretty simple three-step process. You've already done the first part. You found your disagreement. Now you shape that into a full argument. You move from just Svendra's is wrong to Svendra's is wrong because of X, Y, and Z. And then you polish that idea into one clear, concise, powerful thesis statement. So what does a great thesis actually look like? Well, for one, it's specific, not some vague general statement. It has a clear, unique angle, your take on the issue. And this one is huge. It has to answer the so what question. Why does your argument even matter? That's what makes it a real academic point. And finally, every single paragraph, every piece of evidence in your paper should circle back to proving that one sentence.
Your GPS is set. Your thesis is ready. It's time to hit the road and actually build the body of your paper. This is where you prove your point using evidence you pull directly from the text. And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote is pulled straight from the assignment prompt itself. It is your golden rule. It's not enough to tell your reader the author is wrong. You have to show them. You have to walk them through the evidence from the article that proves your point.
And how exactly do you do that? You use specific quotes to back up what you're saying. Every single body paragraph needs to have a clear job to do, and that job is to help prove your thesis. Use quotes strategically, not just as filler. Use them to define a key term Svendra's uses, or to give a perfect example of the flawed reasoning you're pointing out. That's how you build a defense for your argument that's impossible to ignore.
All right, you have built a fantastic, solid argument. Now for the final step, making sure the whole thing is polished and meets all the technical rules. You don't want silly little mistakes to take away from your brilliant ideas.
Let's just run through this final checklist real quick. You need 2 to 3 full pages for the final draft. Make sure you have a title. You absolutely need a works cited page. And remember, that page doesn't count towards your length requirement. And stick to third person, present tense, all in proper MLA format.
Now, I have to pause on one thing here, and it is super important: the works cited page. If that page is missing from your final draft, it's an automatic half-a-letter grade deduction. That is a huge penalty for something that's really easy to get right. So please, whatever you do, do not forget it.
So as you sit down to write, just remember this. This paper isn't just another assignment. It's your ticket into a much larger, ongoing academic conversation. It's your chance to put your own ideas out there, to make a clear, well-reasoned argument. It's your voice, your analysis, so make it count.